So recently, one of my favorite Dans on YouTube, Dan Is Not On Fire, made a video entitled Existential Crisis, which another one of my favorite Dans, Dan and Maddox, made a response video to. All this talk of life and death and the inevitability of it all got me thinking, or I guess I should say remembering, because I think about this shit all the time. I had my first real existential crisis when I was 14 years old. I had just watched the documentary Life Without People, and if you ever freak out about the purpose of humanity, yeah, you probably should not watch that documentary, because no. Basically, Life After People is exactly what it sounds like. Granted, I haven't watched it since it first aired, but what I remember taking away from it was that life goes on without humanity. Animals keep breathing, the world keeps on spinning, and in a lot of ways, the Earth is better off without us. And that's fucking terrifying. I'm gonna get a little personal here and probably share more than I should share on the internet. Probably gonna regret telling the story. But yeah, here we go. Basically, I suffered with depression and anxiety most of my life. I started self-harming when I was 12, which means, you know, all the depression had just kind of been culminating and bubbling up inside of me. And then I watched this documentary and it was kind of the tipping point. Instead of wondering what the point of my life was, I was suddenly wondering what the point of everyone's life was. What was the point of any life? And that's a really dangerous train of thought. On January 11th, 2009, I attempted suicide. My existential crisis had gotten so out of control that I really honestly believed that it wouldn't matter if I died because none of our lives mattered and we would all die anyway, so who cared? I learned two things from my suicide attempt. First, and if you are suicidal, please listen to this one carefully, you will always hurt someone when you die. Death fucking sucks. Trust me, I know. It is never fun, it's never simple, it's never easy. At the time, I really honestly believed that if I killed myself, my parents and my friends, they would move on within a few months, and then they would die, and I wouldn't really hurt anybody that much. That was not the case, and I got to see it firsthand. I know that it sounds cliche, and you probably won't believe it if you're feeling suicidal, but so many people care about you. I've been on both sides of this. A little while ago, one of my best friends killed herself. And she thought that nobody cared about her, and that no one would care if she died. There were so many people at her funeral that people literally had to stand outside during the service. My point is, people will always care about you, and even if humanity's pointless, we're still here. We're still living and we're still breathing. And even if our actions aren't remembered for the next 100 years, they still have very real, very painful consequences. But to bring it all back to the existential crisis, asking these questions about life and death and the meaning of it all, it doesn't have to be as painful as it was for me. As both Dan and Dan mentioned in their videos, an existential crisis doesn't have to be a bad thing. I mean, they're annoying and they suck, and I don't think anybody really enjoys them, but at least you're having one. You're thinking about life on a much deeper level. At least we're asking these questions. It's like Dan said in his video, there's a certain amount of gratification that comes from the self-actualization you get at the end of these existential crises. Ultimately, I guess my advice would be to push through it. Question life and question death and question the meaning of it all, but don't let it consume you. I know that sometimes that seems impossible, and you're entitled to lay in bed and wallow in your existential angst for a while, but eventually you have to pick yourself back up. Because at the end of the day, I think that drive and that curiosity and the yearning for answers to impossible questions, that's what makes humans human. I mean, maybe that's our purpose in life. Maybe we're all here to search for an answer, and that's why we exist. And maybe it's not. Lately I've been trying to remind myself to have fun and to enjoy things more. Seeing the Grand Canyon, moving to LA, bungee jumping, spending a year in Europe, none of these things are gonna lead me any closer to leaving my mark on the world, and they're probably not gonna get me much closer to figuring out what I'm supposed to do. But that's okay, because I had fun and I enjoyed myself and I did something worthwhile. Imagine finding out the meaning of life only to realize that you didn't do anything with yours. That's one of the scariest things I can think of. So fuck it. Fuck it all. Fuck your existential crisis. Fuck your fear of death. Fuck it, fuck it, fuck it. So keep asking questions and keep being curious, but have fun. Do something exciting, do something new, and live your life. Because when you start living your life how you want to live it, an existential crisis isn't gonna have shit on you.